Hello, wine friend, and welcome to episode 107 of the Wine Educate podcast. I am your host, Joanne Close, and today we're continuing with Alsace. We're going to be covering the regions, classifications, grapes, and climate of this infinitely fascinating area. I have been immersed in Alsace all week, recording my level 3 prep membership modules, and I'm teaching the in-person Alsace class tomorrow night, and it's going to be fun. I'm really excited. I love these wines. All right, so let's look at where we are again. So we're this very thin, narrow strip of land that is a couple of miles wide and about 75 miles north to south. We're on the border of Germany and France. You've got the Vosges Mountains to the west, which today we're going to learn are super important, and then the Rhine River to the east. The climate here is cool to moderate continental, and we are up at the northern limit of where grapes can be grown in between the 47th and 49th latitude. The Vosges Mountains in Alsace are hugely important to the styles of wines that are able to be produced here. And we're going to talk all about this effect that it has on the wines, and it is called the rain shadow effect. And I was able to find all these gorgeous slides on the interwebs to show us how this actually works. What's happening is you have these winds coming in from the Atlantic, and they're carrying a lot of moisture from the west. And then the winds hit a mountain range. This is not just singular to the Vosges. So this happens in other mountain areas where grapes are grown. And as the air rises, it cools and it drops all that rainfall. So it dumps all that water on the western side. And by the time it gets to the eastern side, this dry air falls down on the eastern side of the mountain. So the difference in rainfall is pretty remarkable. On the western side of the Vosges Mountain, you could get up to 2,000 millimeters. And then on the eastern side, it's about a fourth of that, 500 millimeters in the city of Colmar. This is the rain shadow effect. And now all these vineyards planted on this narrow strip of land, so now this makes sense that they're all planted in this sweet spot on the foothills of the Vosges Mountains, benefiting from this dry air and lots of sunshine. And it's this effect that is able to produce these gorgeous wines in this region. All right, back to my ping pong lesson. So sometimes Alsace is French and sometimes it's German, but it has an identity all of its own. And when we talk about the wine rules and the grapes planted here, you can really see that influence from both places. Let's start with the grape varieties. And this region is also pretty interesting for a premium wine region. I'm calling it that because I believe it to be true. A premium winemaking region, the white grapes are the hero grapes. If you look at some of the Master of Wine essay questions, they love to ask, is white wine as good as red wine? Which I think is a really rotten question because the answer is yes, of course. And certainly the wines from this region would fit that category. And if you give me that essay question, I'm going to focus a lot on Alsace. Here, the hero grape is Riesling. That makes sense. Germany is just across the river. This grape really thrives in this cool to moderate climate. In order of plantings, Riesling is planted the most. Then we have Gewurztraminer, Pinot Gris, Auxerrois, Pinot Noir, Sylvaner, Pinot Blanc, Muscat, and then other grape varieties. Our only red grape is Pinot Noir. It's less than 10% of the total plantings. We'll start with talking about Riesling. It is completely different than the Mosel Riesling. It is medium to full body, typically dry, medium in alcohol, and high in acidity. It has aromas of citrus and stone fruit, but often with pronounced stony or steely mineral character. Gewurztraminer is such a recognizable grape. If you get it in a blind tasting, it jumps out of the glass at you. The skin of the grape has light pink tinge to it, giving it a golden color. to some of the wines. And what is it like? Your book uses the word pungent, which I find hilarious. Pungent, aromatic, spicy nose. And it is very pronounced. Key aromas, lychee, rose, and sweet baking spices. Full-bodied with rich, oily texture, low to medium acidity, and high alcohol. It's not uncommon for them to be 14% plus alcohol content. Pinot Gris. This is where Pinot Gris really shines. Pinot Gris is the same as Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio grown in Italy. Although we did discuss that there's some amazing Pinot Grigios made in Italy, the vast majority are crisp, light, a little bit of citrus, a little bit of green apple, green pear. This style of Pinot Gris is quite different. Appearance-wise, they look like Gewurztraminer in that they have a lot of color in the skin. Going to be higher in acidity, though, than Gewurztraminer and slightly less aromatic. What is Pinot Gris like here? Rich, full-bodied, high in alcohol, richly textured on the palate with pronounced flavor intensity, flavors of fresh and dried fruits with a honeyed character. Muscat. Muscat is one of these noble grape varieties. And here it's a bit of a tale of two Muscat. Muscat Blanc à Petit Grain and Muscat Autumnal. Muscat Blanc à Petit Grain is prone to poor fruit set and rot in cool continental conditions. So it's a bit of a pain, but it does make the better wines. And then Muscat Autumnal is more widely planted because it's more reliable. It's easier to farm and crops more regularly, despite being less aromatic. The style of the Muscat Blanc à Petit Grain is going to be orange blossom, rose, fresh grape. These are one of these grapes that smells like grapes. Light to medium bodied, low to medium acidity. So those were the four noble grape varieties. We also have Pinot Blanc and Auxerrois. Poor Pinot Blanc. It just didn't make the cut for the old noble grape varietal list. It's planted on the plains, and it's the major grape used to make sparkling wine. Sparkling wine is a rising category here in Alsace. The appellation system. You can breathe a sigh of relief here because the appellation system in Alsace is pretty straightforward. The regional appellation is Alsace AOC, and that covers the majority of the area that's planted. There are no Premier Crus, although it's in the works, but not as of yet. But we do have about 51 Grand Crus with stricter rules. Both Alsace and Alsace Grand Cru wines can apply to use the Vendanges Tardives and Sélection Grand Noble classification terms, which I want to talk about in just a minute. The rules in Alsace. This is where you see a little bit French, a little bit German coming into play. You see the grape varietal on the label. Now, this is not really something that's done in France, right? But Alsace is in France, and now they clearly label the wines with the name of the grape. And if they do that, the wine has to be from 100% of that grape. There's no like, oh, it has 10%, but we're just going to say that it's all Pinot Gris. No, it has to all be 100%. You do have a small amount of blended wines here that are not varietally labeled. Blended wines tend to be inexpensive, made from juice that didn't make the cut for the varietal bottlings. They can be labeled as Edelsvicker or Gentil or under the producer brand name. Some high-quality blends can be from Grand Cru vineyards, but this is pretty rare. Okay, Alsace Grand Cru, the rules. Well, they can only be from the four noble grapes, right? Riesling, Muscat, Gewurztraminer, and Pinot Gris. The label must state the vineyard name, the vintage, and the grape. Okay, you knew it was coming. The controversy. There's always controversy, and here it is. When they started the Grand Cru appellation, they did a bit of what happened in Germany in 1971, and some of the Grand Cru boundaries are quite large. So vineyards that had been making wine for many, many years on really excellent sites were then lumped in with some other producers making wine that was not so great as theirs, not up to their standards. This caused controversy, and some of those producers have chosen to not use the Grand Cru and bottle their wines with their own specific vineyard name, their Ludi, to not take part in the classification. Vendanges tardive means late harvest. We see the term late harvest applied to lots of different wines around the globe. It is only here in Alsace that it actually legally means something. It can only be made from one of the 4 noble grapes, and it must reach a minimum sugar ripeness at harvest. If you're thinking, this echoes what happens in Germany, you're right. The sugar weight before harvest indicates the style of wine. In the best Vendanges tardive wines, the grapes have undergone something called passerellage, and this is when the grapes are drying on the vine. Now, this differs than what happens in Valpolicella. That is called the appassamento method, and that is when you're harvesting fresh grapes and letting them dry on the straw mats. For passerellage, the grapes are drying on the vine before you harvest them. They could have some influence of noble rot, and the styles range from dry to medium sweet. If we're going to do a comparison with a style from Germany, we could say maybe it's like a Spätlese or Auslese, similar in its residual sugar and style. Then we have the Selection de Grand Noble, or SGN, and this is the sweetest style. It must be made from the 4 noble grapes. It has a minimum sugar ripeness that is set higher than that is for Vendanges tardive, and you usually are going to see noble rot in these wines. The equivalent for this in Germany is a Trockenbier in Auslese, or beer in Auslese. Clear botrytis influence. So after the fermentation, you are not ending up with a dry wine. The style is going to always be sweet. The overall focus here in Alsace is in aromatic winemaking, preserving the aromatics. Aromatic winemaking, meaning oxygen is the enemy. We are fermenting in inert vessels, stainless steel tanks. We're not having the wine go through things like malolactic conversion. We're not having the wines really spend time on their lees because we're preserving these aromatics. And indeed, most modern cellars will have stainless steel and temperature control. Then you're saying, well, Joanne, why are you now showing me a picture of a barrel? Oak is still used, but let me do some disclaimers here. These are large oak barrels. You could go inside and stand up, and often people have to do this terrible job of going inside the barrel and cleaning it. No, thank you. And they're old. Some of these are 100 plus years old. Any of that oak flavor is no longer being imparted into the wine. The tartrates have crystallized over on the inside of the barrel, so really no flavor is getting in. There is still a little bit of oxygen that is coming in through the barrel, and this helps to round out the wines, give it a little bit of extra texture, but it is not giving it oak flavor. Some modern news: in 2021, they rolled out sweetness labeling. Much like in Germany, there's sometimes confusion of, is this wine dry? Is this wine sweet? They wanted to help clear this up for you and me, the consumers, and give us an idea of the sweetness level. So they introduced this law, this change. They said that every producer had to, on the back of the bottle, put a sweetness scale. Now, they could use the actual words, or they could use these numbers, like an actual scale. How well did that work? Well, still a bit confusing because they didn't give strict parameters as to what grams per liter of sugar would fall into what category. It was more like sweetness tasting. So when you tasted it, did it taste off dry? Did it taste dry? And then there was issues with the Grand Cru, shocker. So that was slower to roll out for the Grand Cru wine. You will still see bottles out in the market that do not have this sweetness labeling, and some of them may. I mentioned in a previous episode for you to go out and get yourself a bottle of Alsatian wine. Now you can have a look at the back and see if it's got this sweetness scale on the back. And then you can say, does it Does it match up? Was it dry? Does the sweetness scale say it's dry? Anyway, fun game to play. Endless fun wine games. That was a lot on Alsace, but that is some good, juicy information for you. I covered a lot of level 2 and level 3 stuff. Make sure that you are on the newsletter so you get my quizzes this week and essay questions. I am working away on my level 3 prep membership. Hope to roll that out soon. Make sure you're on the newsletter so you know when that is happening. Go to wineeducate.com and click on that green newsletter sign up button. My friend, thank you so much. Enjoy your week.